verify. So our next sponsor that we want to give a shout out to is the Memphis Redbirds. The Memphis Redbirds are Memphis minor league baseball team and AAA affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. The Memphis Redbirds support alcohol and drug prevention efforts for youth in Shelby County by providing our community with healthy alternatives. We are so grateful for their sponsorship, and now we are going to hear a word from our next sponsor, which is ABC 24.
This city's dirty and it needs cleaning up.
Memphis spring cleaning is here. ABC 24 is teaming up with the Memphis Urban League to clean up the junk littering our neighborhoods. The cleanup crew needs you. Roll up your sleeves and help make Memphis beautiful. Sign up by texting cleanup to 901-321-7520.
This is Memphis. There is a lot to love, from the events that are uniquely ours to the incredible people. We're highlighting what makes this such a special place as we celebrate Memphis.
To be able to take the voices together to create this wonderful harmony that tells this story and gives this expression.
Our celebration will show off our one-of-a-kind community gatherings, like Africa in April, Memphis in May, and 901 Day. Our storytelling will celebrate Memphis's best and brightest, our amazing teachers and medical workers, the Memphis music that makes the world dance, and our city's diversity and history makers past and present.
Because representation is very important, and I want to be a part of it.
ABC 24 and CW30 are inviting viewers to share the stories that make them proud to be Memphians. Celebrate Memphis, our families, our way of life, and our home.
All right, thank you so much, ABC 24. ABC 24 embraces all aspects of our community, and we advocate for improvements to make all our lives better. MAPC is a strong voice in the recovery community, and we are proud supporters of their mission, vision, and purpose. We are honored to be a proud partner and sponsor for 2022. And we are so delighted and honored to have them as a sponsor. They have been a huge supporter of ours. They've done some amazing commercials that we have not gotten a chance to share today, but we will. Just a reminder, the CEUs will be put in the chat box after each conference. We're going to get started with our next speaker. And I'm going to turn it over to Olivia, and we've got one more video to show from you from ABC 24 before Olivia joins us.
Memphis is a city fueled by hope. When times get tough, our people are always there to lend a hand to their fellow Memphian to help pull them back up on their feet. ABC 24 embraces all community efforts to keep Memphis standing tall. MAPC is a strong voice with a solid platform in the recovery community, providing aid through education, advocacy, health awareness, and networking with counseling and recovery services. We are proud to call them fellow Memphians. We are proud supporters of their mission, vision, and purpose. And we are honored to be a partner and sponsor of MAPC for 2022.
Hello again, everybody, and we are moving on to our third presenter of the day, Traci Kennedy. Traci has been fighting for smoke-free air since she testified at her first city council meeting as a high school student. In her current role as the Midwest State Strategist for the American Non-Smokers' Right Foundation, she works in a challenging 12-state territory at the local and statewide level to protect employees from secondhand smoke at work. Her career started at the University of Missouri in the Department of Student Life. She spent a brief time working in health information technology, building the state's electronic medical exchange network. Traci is passionate about the power of coalition building and grassroots policy change to impact population health. Please join me in welcoming Traci Kennedy.
Well, thank you for such a warm welcome. My name is Traci Kennedy. I'm thrilled to be spending a little bit of time with you all this morning from Des Moines, Iowa, but looking forward to future days when we can gather again in person. I can make a trip to Memphis. So today, I would love for you to not only be hearing from me, but also our artist in residence, Mr. Jamie Kent, who lives in Nashville, and is an artist and entrepreneur, and we're going to talk about his efforts in a minute. And he would not have missed this for any other reason than he welcomed a brand new baby on Tuesday. So Jamie will look forward to a chance to talk with many of y'all again soon. So I'm going to do my best to bring Jamie's energy and excitement, because there is so much happening in the state of Tennessee that could really make an impact on the coalition and the work that y'all do as advocates in Memphis. So just a really super exciting time being watched from all over the country. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about how we sing the song against secondhand smoke and about the coalition Musicians for Smoke-Free Tennessee, as well as the organization I work for, in case you're not familiar, Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights. So I live for the feedback, so please feel free to drop things into the chat or the Q&A. And to get us started, I thought we'd do a little fun exercise here. If your coalition, or if you as an individual had a theme song, what would it be? You have a theme song, or maybe it's I just saw the Memphis Redbirds are a sponsor. What would your at-bat song be? So if you'll drop that in the chat, would love to hear. And also, if you, a little bonus point here, what's one thing you hope to gain from our time today as we spend the next 45-ish minutes together? And thank you to the first respondent. As a University of Missouri grad, really appreciate that Eye of the Tiger reference there. So appreciate that. Today, as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about our team, Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights, and what we do, as well as the coalition we've been working with in the state, Musicians for Smoke-Free Tennessee. We're going to touch on secondhand smoke and the emerging trends, current efforts happening as we speak in the state of Tennessee, and then what we think will be some key components for successful local policy changes. And then the crux of what we do at A&R, which is model policy guidance, working with policy champions and community education. So Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights, we are a nonprofit advocacy group that has been working exclusively on the issue of smoke-free air for more than 40 years. Our organization really got its start with flight attendants and the Flight Attendants Union, who came to our organization, a small group in Berkeley, California, and said, we are tired of being exposed to secondhand smoke at work. We are getting sick, our colleagues are getting sick, and we have to do something about it. And so we were really born at that grassroots level, and we have since our inception and remain to be a workers' rights organization. Now, over time, in that 40 years, we've seen a tremendous expansion of smoke-free air protections. So the majority of Americans are protected from secondhand smoke in their workplace. However, that's a narrow majority. There's, around 40% of people who still have to face secondhand smoke every day in their workplace. And as I was listening to other speakers today, as someone who kind of came up in the prevention field, and I was a peer educator and worked in alcohol and drug prevention, I just admire what you all do so much. And I feel like in this field, we have a lot of complicated problems and challenging solutions, and we're always trying to do it with fewer resources, less money, less power. And so sometimes I like to remind myself that the importance of focusing on tobacco control and secondhand smoke is that these still remain leading causes, smoking, of preventable death. And we know the solution, right? Like, it's very simple to fix the problem of secondhand smoke. You just stop it. You just remove smoking indoors and immediately you get the result. Now, I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but I think that's just really essential. And that's why I'm so thrilled that y'all are making this a priority on your agenda today. So as I said, we have greatly expanded smoke-free protections in workplaces. However, persistent gaps really leave vulnerable populations exposed to secondhand smoke. So those who work in the hospitality industry and places that we don't necessarily think of in everyday life as workplaces, places like casinos, music and entertainment venues, even bars. These are all workplaces where people may be working 40 plus hours a week. You have a higher proportion of people of color, higher proportion of women, of those who identify as LGBTQA. So, this is really what the crux of what we're focusing on right now. And Tennessee in particular specifically falls into this gap because there are no local smoke-free protections in Tennessee, and the statewide protections are quite weak. So out of this project, or out of our work to identify gaps in smoke-free protections, we started looking at smoke-free music cities. And this was kind of born out of our projects in New Orleans, which is a smoke-free music city, in Baton Rouge, and in Atlanta, where musicians really came together to share their voice and say, we are not an exemption. We deserve smoke-free air in our workplace. And so out of smoke-free music cities, which you can check out our website, we have some amazing artist testimonials. It sounds like there are musicians and artists on this call today, which I cannot wait to hear you perform. But we have been collecting stories and testimonials, and these are incredibly powerful, not only with music lovers and appreciators, fans out there, but also with lawmakers and decision makers. Musicians have an incredibly big impact, especially in a place like Tennessee, where tourism dollars are really reliant on musicians and they're sharing their art. So through our Smoke-Free Music Cities project, that's where we were introduced to Jamie Kent, who is our official artist in residence at Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights. And Jamie is a musician himself. He has asthma. He is an entrepreneur and performs across the country, and really just felt that something had to be done about the injustice that musicians are essentially the only workforce in Tennessee that remains unprotected from secondhand smoke. And so Jamie signed on to create this robust coalition, Musicians for a Smoke-Free Tennessee. So Musicians for Smoke-Free Tennessee is the Tennessee coalition working to bring smoke-free protections in age-restricted venues. And I love these great kind of coalition or personal theme songs. We should make a playlist because it looks very inspiring, that we're the champions and nothing's going to stop us now. So I love that. So on the Musicians for Smoke-Free Tennessee website, you can actually listen to our coalition theme song, You Are Not Alone, which is a great listen. So add that to your playlist later today. So in addition to advocating for smoke-free air protections for everyone, no matter where they work, Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights also tracks all different kinds of ordinances and policies from across the country. And then we post quarterly lists and maps to help to understand where smoke-free protections are guaranteed, and again, where those gaps persist. So this first map that you are looking at are states. These are states that regulate smoking in workplaces, restaurants, bars, and commercial gaming. So you can kind of see the blue, the sea of blue states. Those are state regulations. And you'll notice Tennessee is not shaded, as well as just generally kind of this gap of the southeast region of the United States, huge gap in terms of statewide policy change. This is also in large part due to preemption. So preemption is when a higher form of government sets a ceiling and says that no other lower form of government can pass any law or ordinance that's in conflict or is stronger than that higher level of government's ordinance. So how that works in practice in the state of Tennessee is the Tennessee state law says that you cannot smoke in workplaces unless you are 21 or older. You have a 21 and older requirement, and then it preempts any local government from taking any action, actually not only on smoke-free air, but also on other tobacco prevention measures. So that is why you see Tennessee shaded in red. So, we started with the statewide map. So for those states that don't have a statewide law, we really have taken this strategy of chipping away and going community by community to create a critical mass of pressure to push for a statewide policy change. But obviously that's not going to work in a place where there's preemption. But in a state like Mississippi, you see Mississippi's covered in triangles. It's almost as if you can't even see the state on the map. So Mississippi has passed a record number of local smoke-free laws just to show that there is demand for smoke-free air in Mississippi communities, despite the delay for state lawmakers to take action. So we have seen a tremendous amount of progress at the local and statewide level over the past 4 decades. We are going to talk a little bit about this, but it's just important to mention that we see smoke as smoke. So when I talk about secondhand smoke, that includes marijuana secondhand smoke, aerosol from e-cigarettes or cannabis oil, cigars, hookah, and traditional tobacco products. So when we talk about smoking, it runs the gamut. It's really any type of smoke, whether from burning or aerosolizing. So we do have see this emerging trend of recreational and medicinal marijuana use. And so we really want to protect the integrity of our statewide and local smoke-free laws to make sure that we're not normalizing smoking indoors again of other products that are not cigarettes, and thus exposing a whole new class of workers to toxic secondhand smoke. So yes, this is kind of the juxtaposed to that last map. So this map is places where recreational and medicinal marijuana use is legal. That's the dark green, light green, medicinal, but not recreational is legal. And then this is kind of our response. This is the place, these are the states and localities where smoke-free laws are strong to say no smoking indoors of any kind, including marijuana use. So great segue. Again, we kind of see this triangulum of product use where it's really about marijuana, tobacco, and e-cigarettes. And the other reason we kind of want to sound the alarm here too is that we're seeing a significant industry interference. And so we have a lot of experience taking on big tobacco. That's kind of why we were created. We've been taking on the tobacco industry and their targeting of certain populations to addict them to their products and to keep smoking the norm. They are responsible for perpetuating myths about smoke-free policies harming business. And actually, the tobacco industry was one of the first, corporate entities to weaponize preemption as a legislative tactic to thwart the success of local smoke-free and statewide smoke-free progress. So if you're wondering, why does Tennessee have preemption? by and large part, that was the successful efforts of the tobacco industry in the 80s and 90s. And now we've seen other industries co-opt that same practice because it was so successful and having kind of a chilling effect in smoke-free progress. So Big Tobacco now also owns the greatest shares in the most popular e-cigarette products, and also is directly connected with investment in marijuana investment groups. And so the marijuana industry is very sophisticated, and a lot of our public health partners are not participating in the conversation around where and how these products might be used. So that's why we find it so important, is that we do not trust these industries to be self-regulating, and we need to be on watch to ensure that we protect everyone, no matter where they work, from all products and all secondhand smoke. So we're even changing the way we think about the kind of international no smoking sign to include this kind of sample signage below, to mention other products. And so we want to ensure that smoke-free secondhand smoke education includes talking about these other products, and that our strongest policies protect indoor use from any of these devices. Okay, let me quickly check your Q&A. So we just talked a little bit about hookah. So we can always talk, or I can show you lists and maps of that. But right now, hookah is a little bit of a loophole in Tennessee statewide law. Again, you would be able to use hookah in a place that restricts entry for 21 and older. But other laws across the country do include hookah in their definition of smoking. And if they use our model definition, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that would apply to hookah. And then the other question about state and local laws, that's a good question about reducing sicknesses over the years. So we can talk about the efficacy of smoke-free laws. But that is the whole kind of impetus behind policy change. So our number one goal really is to protect people from secondhand smoke. It's not to pass policies. However, what we find is 100% smoke-free policies have a direct correlation with improving community health. It reduces exposure to secondhand smoke. It immediately improves indoor air quality. It reduces risk of heart attack and stroke and cardiovascular disease, especially for high risk, at-risk populations and those with comorbidities. And so, as I was saying earlier, we live in a society with some complex problems, especially in the prevention world, but we are fortunate when it comes to the impact of smoking and secondhand smoke, that if a 100% smoke-free policy really is a proven public health solution to this problem. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the great state of Tennessee. So we've been gathering testimonials from artists in the state of Tennessee. We kind of launched last fall at a local smoke-free venue in Nashville, the 5 Spot, and have been, playing for anybody who is willing to hear the message that musicians deserve to breathe smoke-free air, just like every other worker in the state of Tennessee. The Coalition of Artists and Musicians is incredibly diverse in terms of representing different types of music, different racial and ethnic backgrounds, different geographic locations. And so we really are proud of this beautiful collaboration. And this is what it looks like, locations throughout the state, and certainly more diverse than often what we see sitting around our more traditional public health coalition table. And so that's really what this project is all about, is expanding our reach. So it's not just those of us who are well-intended public health or public policy experts, who this is part of our regular day job that we work 8 to 5. This is about expanding that table, expanding those hours, and really centering the work on those who are most impacted by secondhand smoke. So there are some challenges and some lessons learned that come with that. the peer-to-peer piece, having Jamie reach out to his fellow musician colleagues, I think is really powerful, and just rethinking when and how our coalition meets, and that not every musician works 8 to 5 or maybe functions a lot on email. So really learning strategies for how to incorporate musician stories into our work to meet them where they are. And also throughout the pandemic, I mean, a challenging time for everyone, but especially for those who rely on live performance to share their art. So we were able to really collaborate to bring a Stay Safe at Home music series, to record some YouTube sessions. So we really see musicians in Tennessee as the center of this entire project. So in addition to musicians at the core of the coalition, we have collected over 80 endorsements from the public health and business communities, from large entertainment venues like Bridgestone Arena and Nissan Stadium, obviously known for athletics, but also major entertainment venues, the music industry, and beyond. So really collecting a lot of interest in this very topic in an unprecedented kind of way. So a lot of excitement and energy building up to this year. We have had some great media coverage. So we hope that you've been able to check some of that out. But yes, we've been talking about this in the news, in the know. So what makes this, so you see this impressive, I find it very impressive, robust list of coalition members. We have great coalition leadership. We have great spokespersons. So why is it so hard? You know, why is Tennessee that red state on the preemption map, or the blank slate when it comes to smoke-free protections? And it's certainly not for a lack of amazing people who are doing work in Tennessee, because I've been to visit y'all and I know how amazing and hardworking you all are. But really, it all comes back to that long-standing stronghold of big tobacco. And it kind of goes back to the agricultural history, especially in southern states, where tobacco really was for a long time like the cash crop for the state of Tennessee. And over time, that has changed dramatically. And while farmers in Tennessee and other places like my home state of Missouri, certainly tobacco is still grown, but there's a whole nother presentation for another day about how commercial tobacco is by and large grown outside the United States in ways that are unsafe to those growing and farming it, and not good for the environment. So it's really just the remnants of that agricultural history that persist, so much so that up until the last few sessions, every tobacco bill in the state of Tennessee, regardless of the nature, smoke-free, tobacco 21, whatever the prevention strategy would be, all bills had to go through the Agriculture Committee. And that's just a testament to the way things are done, the way they've always been done, because tobacco used to be a major cash crop so long ago in the state of Tennessee. But that's why we have that. The tobacco industry actually also conceptualized that the whole concept of the red light, green light provision. So saying, okay, you know, during the day, I'm a restaurant and no one can smoke here. But, you know, if I'm only going to let people in, I'm going to put a sign up that says only 21 and over allowed, then you get the green light and can allow smoking. But that's incredibly, you know, it's difficult to enforce. It's really soft. It exposes employees. It just doesn't work. But it was kind of passed under the guise of a kind of wolf in sheep's clothing, like a way to protect youth. So those are just a combination of the reasons why it's so challenging to advance smoke-free protections in the state of Tennessee. And I bring up the last point just because, you know, even when I first started in this field more than 10 years ago, we would get pushback about the science of secondhand smoke. Well, you know, actually someone did say it on the Senate floor this year. I grew up in secondhand smoke and my lungs are just fine. Or my grandpa smoked every day until he was healthy, 85 years of age. So we actually hear less of that. People have pretty much accepted that smoking is bad for you and that secondhand smoke is bad for you. But instead, the crux of the argument is about individualism, the role of government, and not regulating businesses and telling them what to do by setting a public health standard. So this kind of politicalization of public health and of smoke-free has become a challenge, specifically in Tennessee. I've alluded to this, but just for as a quick refresher, what the current law is in the state of Tennessee is the Non-Smokers Protection Act. It requires workplaces and essentially like restaurants to be smoke-free and exempts any establishment that's restricted to 21 and over. It preempts any local action on smoke-free air by any county or city or municipal form of government. And then as of last year, the Non-Smoker Protection Act also includes e-cigarettes. So in addition to cigarettes, you cannot use e-cigarettes in these places. So what we've been working on now for this year, well, it started last year and rolled over to this year, is proposed legislation that repeals preemption for age-restrictive venues. So right now, HB 2705, this has passed the Senate, which is a huge monumental success. It's one of the only successful preemption repeal campaigns happening in the country right now, only ones. So we are moving toward a vote in the House, which will likely happen early next week. But the crux of the bill is that it just says cities in Tennessee, municipal forms of government in Tennessee can pass local ordinances that require age-restricted venues to be smoke-free or music venues. So that's the crux of what we're working at right now, which of course, do we want Tennessee to have a comprehensive, strong smoke-free law that applies to all workplaces and public places and all products? Absolutely. But we see a step in the right direction to at least be able to protect musicians at the local level. So what we hope is that after this session, we'll be looking to see how can we make local smoke-free a priority in communities like Memphis. And really what it starts with is, identifying ordinance language that covers the most people in the most places. And that's something, this is just a quick reminder, this is something Americans for Non-Smokers Rights does. We maintain model ordinance language for municipalities, for outdoor places of employment or places like parks, colleges and universities, and multi-unit housing. So these are all spaces that we work in that can adopt. Some of these are voluntary smoke-free policies, like at the multi-unit housing property level, or they're more like laws or official policies like a municipal policy. So we have worked with attorneys, we review these regularly to really ensure that the definitions are tight, that these can withstand legal challenge, but mostly that they don't create any unintended loopholes and that they maximize protections. Because anytime, laws that are strong, simple, and fair protect the most people and are also the easiest to enforce. So we do find that smoke-free policies are largely self-enforcing. If you communicate about the policy, you let the community know what's happening, you let them know that secondhand smoke is a problem and why. You give people the tools for how to comply with the policy. You take out the ashtrays, you don't put a receptacle right outside the door, and you put a sign up. Really, these are largely self-enforcing. People have come to expect smoke-free workplaces and public places. So that's not really an issue. And especially if there's not a rule where you can smoke some places and not others. So public health plays a huge role in that education and outreach piece. But the other reason it's important is that every exemption creates inequity. So we just don't feel we're in the business of saying this worker's health matters more than this worker, because at the end of the day, we understand people are concerned about their bottom line and how this impacts their business. But the health of workers must be the priority, especially in light of a global respiratory pandemic. A healthy workforce is essential to keeping business operating as usual. And we really hope that smoke-free can be a part of the future discussion about how to keep businesses healthy and safe. Because again, anytime you start to think about, well, what about this venue for cigars, or what about this venue for hookah? That just means exposing those workers to secondhand smoke, which is not fair. It's not just, and we don't want to weigh one worker's health as more important or less important than another's. So that's kind of the first key component of a successful policy campaign work, is making sure that model ordinance language is in place and you know what's going to protect the most people in the most places. And then really what's essential is identifying your community support, who are your key stakeholders, and really that decision maker support. So finding those strong local decision makers who can be spokespeople for smoke-free air is so essential. And we have such great examples from across the country of mayors, like the mayor of Fort Worth, Texas, where the biggest opposition was from bingo and bingo parlors. So it never ceases to amaze me in this wonderful world what the opposition will be. And in Fort Worth, it was bingo. So this mayor really came with a pro-business, business rights argument, but also the importance of smoke-free air. Probably my hero in smoke-free air champions is Mayor LaToya Cantrell from New Orleans, who just really stood up to the casino industry and refused to back down to protect, to ensure casino workers and musicians were protected in New Orleans. And then a little bit more recently in Atlanta, we have Councilman Matt Westmoreland. And so the reason I bring these up too is because sometimes when we're talking about smoke-free policy change, it can feel like something that is happening somewhere else for people with like a different political makeup or background, or places where it seems easier to organize. But we have seen success in some of the hardest places, like Atlanta, like New Orleans, like Fort Worth, Texas. And really a crucial key component to success are local elected decision makers who are willing to take a stand on the issue and really work with your coalition and work through the process to prioritize smoke-free air for the community. Where I think an amazing opportunity for a community like Memphis, and we'll also be working in Knoxville and Chattanooga, and what we've been doing in Nashville, is to highlight these musician testimonials I've talked about, to amplify stories being told, to let people know that secondhand smoke is still an issue in the community, letting people know that it's a priority and that it's important, that people are having to sacrifice their health for their livelihood is so essential. And so, Jamie has been willing to kind of lend his voice and face to billboards and to other editorials. But I think starting at the community level, either through social media, through earned media, like letters to the editor, radio shows, just talking about the issue is really square one. That's where we start. Just talking about the issue, not letting it be invisible, and not making any assumptions that, people know that you can still smoke in certain workplaces and public places in your community. I'll just share briefly too, that we've had an incredible amount of success in Atlantic City, New Jersey, where a group of casino workers has largely used Facebook as an organizing tool to come together and speak out about the conditions of working in smoke-filled casinos in Atlantic City, which is the second largest gaming market outside of Las Vegas. So again, the reason I bring this up is because there's an adage that my colleague always says, that it always seems impossible until it's done. So it can feel impossible for, the largest gaming market outside of Las Vegas to ever have smoke-free casinos until 1,000+ casino workers are organizing and attending rallies and speaking out on this issue. And for a long time, we've just looked at this gap as Tennessee is this blip on the map where it doesn't seem possible, until we heard directly from musicians, and that really just broke through the noise. And through artists like Jamie, we've just seen such renewed interest and energy, and really an ability to get a meeting with anybody they ask, because there's just a lot of trust in the beauty and the art of what musicians do. And so, kind of this whole story is to say that as public health and prevention experts, for a long time, we've been trying to serve as a proxy. We've been trying to tell the stories for others. We've been trying to shine the light for others. We've been trying to sit around the table and close these loopholes. But there was really a missing link. We were talking at or talking about those that are most impacted. And really what seems to be flipping the switch in this kind of emerging post-pandemic-ish world is hearing from authentic voices and removing that degree of separation, and really going behind, having public health kind of being one step behind the scenes, and having our spokespersons really being the ones out in the community doing the work. And certainly there's a lot of power in that, to see people learn about community organizing and joining a coalition and having a meeting, recruiting spokesperson, all of that is just an incredible process that can really benefit those individuals and the broader community, even beyond the impact of smoke-free air. So I just always like to say that, because that's another reason I'm so incredibly passionate about this work. And what I love the most about it is the way that it changes people and it changes communities forever. It makes such an impact. And, if you're a coalition that's covering multiple issues, success and experience in one task force, as a previous speaker talked about the organization, success in one task force can really help to build credibility and build power and grassroots support for success in other aspects of the community that you want to cover. So it's not an either or type of situation here, but how do we both and how do we build from success in one area to focus on others? Hopefully, if y'all have been driving through the state of Tennessee, or maybe they're in Memphis, maybe you've seen a couple billboards up. But this is kind of the tagline that we've been using. And so in addition to authentic voices, it's the authentic look, and trying to push ourselves outside the box to think about what really looks and feels like Tennessee. And it still has a strong public health message, but maybe has a look that's a little glossier and eye-catching than what we're accustomed to, or for a different project like the CDC Tips campaign, for example, just something different that catches the eye. I talked about this a little earlier, but I hope you all will take a minute to check out Musicians for Smoke-Free Tennessee on Facebook. We did a series of smoke-free Sunday sessions, and these are so much fun to watch. It's like a free, amazing show. And so definitely check those out, and you can see some of maybe your friends and neighbors featured as well. But another great way to build engagement. And then each of these is like a letter to the editor. Each of these is like an op-ed. It's sharing a personal message about the importance of smoke-free air with another network. So what is interesting, a few artists have shared when they post these testimonials or when they post their session, it gets a lot more engagement than other things they've posted. So their fans are really interacting, and fans are really up in arms and upset that their favorite artists and musicians are being exposed to secondhand smoke and, gunking up their instruments and equipment. So that's been interesting to see too, just the powerful response from the fan base. Of course, we had to include John Paul Keith. And so in addition to, we had Sunday sessions, testimonial Tuesdays, and Friday FAQs. So one thing we see as a strength of Musicians for Smoke-Free Tennessee is that we have an incredible amount of content already created. And we find borrowing to be a fine form of flattery, that if you're interested in starting to share some of the messages about secondhand smoke and smoke-free air, there's a lot of great content that you can pull from to help start to build the conversation and create excitement. And even though some of this may not be exactly specific to your community, it really is specific to Tennessee, and we'd be happy to look for ways for how to kind of personalize and customize and make it look and feel like you're in. Okay, so we have a little bit of time left that I would love to answer some questions, and I hope we've touched on a few things you wanted to get from this session. But really what we're hoping to do is to see changes at the statewide level in the state of Tennessee. So we have an opportunity to create local policy change. But even if that doesn't happen, we want to find new ways to collaborate and to focus on the issue of secondhand smoke, to create and build strong community coalitions, to create eye-catching, impressive, kind of PR and social media that can collect energy and excitement. And really, we're here as an organization to help with all of that. We're very committed to the work happening in Tennessee and also in your community. I really think it's a real moment to be a part of all of this. So we're hoping we can only further that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second so I can see your chat and Q&A better. So we talked a little bit about hookah. We talked about reducing sicknesses over the years. And someone also has asked about volunteer programs for secondhand smoke, which is a great question. Hopefully there will be more coalition work on this issue in your community, and that will produce, it sounds like maybe there's a task force on tobacco. So maybe that's an opportunity, but also the American Lung Association has some great programs for direct service providing for how to get information out and help to quit smoking. So I didn't talk as much about that today, but obviously that's kind of a critical component of, a tangent of smoke-free air policy. But the state of Tennessee does offer free help for people to quit smoking. And then in addition, the American Lung Association has local support for people who are interested in quitting. Okay, I'm sorry. Is it okay to keep going with questions, Scarlett? Is this okay?
Yes, sorry.
No, you're fine. I just see a window and I'm like making sure. Yes, I think we have a few minutes. So one more question. What effects do you think the pandemic will have on passing these ideas? Will it make it easier or harder? What a great question. I don't know myself whether, things feel easier or harder some days. I think it's a both and, in some ways, places we never thought would go smoke free had to shutter during the pandemic and close their doors and shut down. And to be in compliance with masking, they had to go smoke free indoors. So we have seen places adapt to no indoor smoking flawlessly. So it's hard to imagine why we would bring secondhand smoke back inside. So in that way, it's made things easier because people have reimagined a healthier environment and paid a little closer attention to respiratory health. But the thing that's made it more challenging, I alluded to a little bit, but there is a little bit of tug between the role of government and that of public health, and those individuals trying to kind of do the right thing at the local and county level are really challenged by everything feeling like it's part of the pandemic vortex, when really they might just be trying to get secondhand smoke out of workplaces. So there's a lot of concern about business interests and how to make sure we're not adversely impacting anybody's business revenues. So that's really upon us, I think, to ensure that we're really focusing on people and the impact to individual health, really emphasizing that this is a real solution to a complex, problem. And so yeah, I think it's both. It's made it easier in some ways and harder in other, but certainly an opportunity that we just don't want to miss.
Perfect. I guess just lastly, what setbacks have you encountered so far at like the state level or the local level?
It's just like setback city, you just kind of have to roll with it. It's a lot of two-stepping. So, in the legislative process in 2021, we failed to get enough votes to make it out of the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee. So they rolled the bill to 2022. Last year, no one was in person in the Capitol building. And so we couldn't do in-person meetings and we couldn't really have a presence. So that was really challenging. But this year we came back with a vengeance and we're really in person as much as we could be in the Capitol in Nashville. But even still, we've faced some unique criticism about undue burden of business and just the improper role of government and some pretty kind of outlandish and wild comments from lawmakers that were actually covered in the Rolling Stone, because it was like so out there what some lawmakers said about this issue on the floor. So we really have been cruising right along and we're like this close. So I think that's probably the biggest setback, is that this just continues to be a divisive issue in some ways when it comes to actually casting a vote on smoke-free air. And that's probably our biggest setback.
Absolutely. Yeah. But y'all are doing great work and we will do anything it takes to help y'all at the coalition.
Well, that's great. We're excited to get in and do the work. And I hope that this will be the beginning of future conversations and collaboration. I kind of gave a lot of overview from our website. So if y'all need any help finding resources or interested in any follow-up, I certainly welcome you to email me anytime. We'd be happy to get together and get you whatever resources you might need.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tracy. Again, the CEU link is going to be in the chat. It already is, but I'll post it again. And I'm going to pass it over to Olivia for the lunch announcement. Thank you again, Tracy.
Thanks for having me.